Welcome back to the shop. Today I'm going to talk about repairing this old antique chair. My pastor at our church went to the house of one of our elderly ladies that goes to the church, and the foot was broken off of this chair. And he said, "Oh, I know somebody who can probably fix it." And of course, as he picked it up to put it in his car, the arm fell off, and there's a half a dozen other things wrong with it. So I'm going to be working on this chair a little bit. And I'm not going to go through every individual step and show you what I do to repair something like this, but what I want to talk to you about a little bit is why, as a woodworker, you should get in the furniture repair business, even just dabble in it a little bit. And I'm not saying that it needs to be a big, huge part of what you do, but you should always take advantage of the opportunity to do some furniture repair for a lot of reasons. Number one, it brings people into your shop who otherwise might not come in. They might not realize what you can do as a woodworker. And so by offering to repair a chair for somebody, which most of the time the repairs are really pretty simple repairs for us to do, it brings somebody into the shop. And I always tell people that I won't repair something that is too big to bring into the shop. I don't want to make house calls, and I don't want to repair great big huge hutches and, you know, beds and all kinds of great big stuff. If they can't bring it into the shop, then I'd rather they call somebody else. And I have some people that they can call to do that. But for repairs and things like the chairs and little end tables, I want them to bring them into my shop, and that way they can kind of see the shop and my tools and what I am capable of making. And I always have projects in progress so they can look around on the bench and see some of the other things, so they can kind of see the breadth of what I can do as a woodworker. And inevitably it could lead to a commissioned job. Maybe they want to have another end table for a different room. They want to have a cutting board or a Christmas gift or something a little bit more, that they want to commission you to do something, so it can always lead to a little bit more work. So it's not a very profitable business to get into just doing furniture repair, but it can lead to some custom commissions and things. Another reason to do some furniture repair is because it teaches us what not to do when we build a piece of furniture. This particular chair happens to be from the Victorian period, and the Victorian era was known for very fancy furniture, but not very well constructed. It was kind of the Industrial Revolution. They were building things in a hurry, and they built things to look good, but they didn't build them to last very long. And most Victorian furniture lasted a long time because in big fancy Victorian houses it never got sat on except in the parlor by a few people. The kids and the rest of the family was all upstairs on the old pine furniture and the stuff later on that was the arts and crafts period furniture, which was really sturdy stuff. I have a chair in the house which is only about 10 years younger than this chair, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's all full mortise and tenon joints and things. This one has all kinds of problems I'll talk about. So you learn as a woodworker what not to do and why, because you see what has failed on these things. Another reason to do furniture repair is respect for the craftsmen who made it. Even though this chair is a Victorian era chair that was probably made in a factory by a whole bunch of guys, they were craftsmen still, and they had workbenches and chisels and saws, and they put some time and some effort into this. And put yourself into that guy's shoes, and that if you spent some time breathing sawdust and cutting your fingers and getting splinters, putting a project together, and then 100 years down the road that project turns up in somebody's house and it needs a little bit of a repair, how would you feel if somebody just took your hard, blood, sweat, and tears that you put into that project and just threw it in the burn pile? So I think we kind of owe it to the previous craftsmen that we are following in their footsteps to take care of this stuff and conserve it. And so I think that's a good reason to get into doing some furniture repair. So let's get started, and I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the specific things that this chair needs. So one of the things that this chair has wrong with it is that there's a piece of veneer missing on the back, and it is quarter sawn oak veneer, and I have a piece that I'm going to cut a few pieces from and see if I can kind of match it and color match it. I grabbed the Minwax color chart from the stain aisle at the hardware store and had my wife kind of look at it, and she said, well, add a little bit of this and a little bit of this, so I'm going to custom mix some of the stains in order to come up with a color that pretty closely matches it. Another thing that this chair has wrong with it is that the arm fell off. And you can see that one of the reasons the arm probably fell off is that it is screwed in through the side rail just with a big wood screw into the end grain of the arm. And we all know as woodworkers you should never screw into end grain because it's really prone to failure. It's not strong enough to hold anything. The mortise and tenon joint that's up underneath that holds it into the bottom is a decent looking joint until you look at the fact that the mortise is a whole lot bigger than the tenon, and they had to fill the extra space with some glue. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to fix that. I might add just a little couple pieces to the cheek of that tenon in order to make it fit into the mortise just a little bit better. And the primary thing that this thing came in for was the broken foot. And this foot, you can see the real problem, the reason that this thing broke off is because the grain is oriented kind of the wrong way, and it's really a low quality piece of oak, so I'm not surprised that it broke. Actually, I'm surprised that it made it as long as it did without breaking. This joint I'm going to end up gluing just with some regular Titebond glue in order to, because it's a repair that's not going to have to come apart again like the arm or the veneer. And so I'm going to put some Titebond in that and run a big dowel or two down through up through the bottom of it to give it a little bit more strength. The other repairs, like the veneer and the arm, I'm going to use some hide glue. And in repairing old furniture, especially old rocking chairs like this, just like with musical instruments, you should use hide glue. Hide glue, as the name implies, was made from animal hides, and so it has a shelf life. It doesn't really last very long. The most common way to get hide glue is to buy it in flakes and then mix it with a little bit of water and heat it up in a little pot. A more convenient way of getting hide glue nowadays is Titebond has some liquid hide glue that is already ready to go. You just squeeze it on and go. I've had these bottles, if you don't use the whole thing within a few months, it might go bad on you and you have to toss it out, but it's certainly a lot more convenient than having a hot pot, especially when you only need some little spots like that done. The nice thing about it too is you've got a lot of open time, and the main thing is that you can loosen this stuff up with a little bit of heat and steam. So with a little bit of heat and steam you can loosen up the joints and take something back apart. That's why they glue guitars and things together with it. If you have to open the thing up and do any repairs, then they use hide glue so you can heat it up and open the guitar up or replace the bridge. With old rocking chairs, if you have an old rocking chair that maybe has a broken spindle and you need to turn and replace a spindle and you can't quite get the new one in there, you should heat up the other joints, pull it apart a little bit, slip the new spindle in with a little bit of hide glue on it, and clamp the thing back together, and when it cools down it'll all be tight again. So that's one of the reasons to use hide glue. And I'll be using that on the other repairs, but except the bottom. I'm going to use regular Titebond, probably Titebond 2 on that because I have a lot of it. So this chair was actually made by A.H. Schramm in Wisconsin. They had a patent on the convolute spring at the bottom of it. So it's kind of like a glider rocker, but instead of actually having some moving parts down there, it has a big spring called a convolute spring. This spring happens to have been repaired twice, but still looks like it's in pretty good shape. They patented the spring, I think, in 1892 or 97, I can't remember, and it's stamped on it up in the corner. And the chairs typically in good condition will go at auction for $400 or $500. So for a Victorian piece of furniture, this is actually kind of a valuable chair, but not anything like you would put in a museum or anything.